The evening air was cold, and the streetlights flickered as the little boy hugged his thin jacket tightly around himself. He sat on the edge of the pavement, his empty stomach growling loudly. Beside him, his mother tried to keep him warm with her own shawl, though she was shivering too. They hadn't eaten a proper meal in days, only scraps of bread given by kind strangers passing by. Every day felt the same, long, hungry, and filled with silence. Across the road stood a grand restaurant, the kind where shiny cars stopped in front, and well-dressed people went in laughing and talking. The smell of hot food often drifted out. When the door opened, making the boy's stomach twist in pain, he used to peek through the big glass windows sometimes, just to see the golden lights and plates full of delicious food. He had once told his mother he wished they could eat there just once, like normal people. She had smiled sadly, telling him maybe one day things would change. But that day had never come. That evening, as he sat watching the restaurant from across the street, he saw a man standing at the door. The man was tall, wearing a neat black coat. The boy had seen him before. He owned the restaurant. People said he was very rich and very strict. No one dared to talk to him unless it was important. The boy stared at him for a long time, his heart pounding. Something inside him whispered that maybe, just maybe, this man could help. His mother was sitting with her head down, looking so tired. He hated seeing her like this. He remembered the night she went hungry so he could have the little food they found. She always said she was not hungry, but he knew she was lying. He wanted to do something, anything, to give her a break from all this pain. Before he could stop himself, the boy stood up. His legs felt weak, but he crossed the road slowly, his eyes fixed on the man in the black coat. The man looked down at him, surprised. The boy swallowed hard and said in a small voice, "Sir, can I bring my mother here to eat, just once?" The words hung in the air like they didn't belong there. For a moment, the man said nothing. People around looked shocked. Some customers waiting outside stared, as if they couldn't believe the boy had spoken to him like that. The boy's heart thumped so loudly he thought everyone could hear it. He expected the man to get angry or maybe laugh at him. Rich people didn't talk to kids like him. But the man just looked at him with a strange expression, as if he was thinking about something far away. Finally, the man nodded slowly. "Bring her," he said in a deep voice. The boy froze. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Did he really say yes? For a second, the boy thought he was dreaming. But the man had already turned to the staff and told them to set a table. The boy ran back across the road, his eyes wide with excitement. He said yes. He told his mother, his voice shaking. His mother looked at him in disbelief. "Who said yes?" "The owner," the boy said quickly. "He said we can eat inside. Come on before he changes his mind." But his mother didn't move. She looked down at her worn-out clothes, her tired hands, her dusty shoes. "I can't," she whispered. "Look at me. People will stare." The boy grabbed her hand. "Please, Mom, just this once, for me." She hesitated, fear and shame filling her eyes. But her son's face was full of hope, and she couldn't say no. Slowly, she got up, brushing the dust from her skirt as they crossed the road together. People outside the restaurant watched them curiously. The boy held his mother's hand tightly, feeling both proud and nervous. He didn't care if people stared. Tonight, his mother was going to sit inside a warm restaurant and eat like everyone else. The door opened, and warm air rushed out, carrying the smell of fresh bread and soup. His mother stopped at the entrance, her heart beating fast. She felt small under the bright lights, aware of every eye on her. The owner stood near the counter, his eyes on her as she walked in. There was something strange in his expression, like he was searching his memory for a face he had seen long ago. The boy didn't notice any of this. He was too busy looking at the shiny tables, the soft chairs, the plates of food being carried by waiters. His dream was finally coming true, but he had no idea this night was about to change all their lives forever. The boy's mother took slow steps inside the restaurant, holding her son's hand like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Her heart was pounding as if the floor itself might open up if she walked too far in. The place was bright, warm, and smelled of food she hadn't tasted in years. For a moment, she felt out of place, like a shadow among all the lights. The boy kept pulling her hand gently, his small face shining with excitement. "Come on, Mom," he whispered, as if afraid someone would change their mind. Some people inside the restaurant paused to look at them. A few whispered to each other. They saw a woman with tired eyes, clothes faded from too many washes, shoes that had walked too many roads. But there was also something in the way she held herself, a quiet dignity, like she refused to let life break her completely. The waiters moved quickly, placing plates, glasses, and cutlery on a table near the corner. The owner gave them a look that said everything must be perfect. He didn't speak much, but everyone could feel the tension in the air. The boy's mother sat down slowly, her fingers trembling as she touched the edge of the tablecloth. She hadn't sat at a real table like this in years. The boy climbed onto the chair opposite her, eyes wide as he watched other people eating. He was too shy to talk, but his whole face showed how happy he was. The owner stood near the counter, watching them. He was a man people feared, strict with his staff, hard in business, always serious. But now his eyes stayed on the woman like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. There was something about her face, something familiar that tugged at the back of his mind. A waiter brought bread and water first. The boy's mother thanked him softly, her voice so low it was almost lost under the noise of clinking dishes. She broke the bread carefully, giving the first piece to her son. He ate like he couldn't believe it was real. For a long time, she didn't touch her own piece, just watched him with a faint smile. The owner walked over slowly. He didn't usually serve customers himself, but he pulled a chair and sat down near their table. The boy froze, not knowing if they were in trouble. The mother looked up nervously. "What's your name?" The owner asked her, his voice calm but with a strange edge. She told him quietly. The moment she said it, his expression changed. It was quick, like a flash of lightning across his face. Recognition, memory, something old stirring awake, years ago. Before the restaurant, before the money, before all this success, he had been a young man with nothing. He remembered cold nights, empty pockets, hunger that burned his stomach. And he remembered one rainy evening when a woman had found him sitting by the road, soaked and shivering. She had given him food, a blanket, a place to sleep for one night. He had never seen her again. Until now, the woman didn't notice his thoughts. She kept her eyes down, holding her son's hand under the table. She didn't expect kindness from strangers anymore. Life had taught her not to. The boy, however, looked at the owner with open curiosity. He didn't understand why the man was staring at his mother like that. To him, this was just about eating warm food for once in his life. The owner leaned back, his mind full of the past. He hadn't thought about those days in years. He had buried that hunger, that helplessness, under piles of money and success. But seeing her face brought it all rushing back, like it had never left. "Do you remember me?" he asked suddenly. The woman looked confused. She shook her head slowly. She had helped many people once, back when she had a home, a life, before everything fell apart. She couldn't remember them all. The owner didn't explain. Not yet. He simply nodded to the waiters, and soon plates of steaming food appeared: soup, rice, meat, vegetables. More than the boy had ever seen on one table. The boy's eyes went wide. He picked up his spoon with both hands, afraid it might all vanish if he waited too long. His mother told him softly to eat slowly, but her voice broke a little as she said it. Around them, other diners kept watching. They didn't know the story, but they felt something important was happening at that corner table. Something beyond just a free meal. The owner stayed near, silent now, his eyes never leaving the woman. He had questions burning inside him, memories, rising like ghosts. And he knew this night was far from over. The restaurant was quieter now. The clinking of dishes and soft music filled the background, but at the corner table, time seemed to slow. The boy was eating as if afraid the food might disappear any second, his small hands holding the spoon tightly. His mother ate little, mostly watching him, her face showing a mix of relief and sadness. The owner stood nearby, arms folded, eyes locked on the woman. He couldn't shake the feeling in his chest. Her face carried the same tired grace. He remembered from years ago, but time had changed her too much. He saw wrinkles now where once there had been none, and her shoulders seemed heavier as if life had put too much weight on them. He kept hearing the rain in his memory, the night she had found him long ago. He had been soaked to the bone, sitting under a broken bus stop, shivering so hard his teeth hurt. No money, no food, no hope. And she, a stranger at the time, had walked by carrying a small bag of groceries. She had stopped. He remembered her pausing, looking at him like she couldn't just keep walking. Then she had given him bread, water, and a blanket she had been carrying. "You look hungry," she had said simply, like it was the most normal thing in the world. To help someone with nothing. That night had changed him more than he realized. He had promised himself that if he ever became someone important, he would help others the way she helped him. And now here she was, sitting in his restaurant, looking like life had taken everything from her. He walked slowly to the table and sat down. The boy looked up, his mouth full, but didn't stop eating. The mother lowered her eyes nervously. "Do you remember a rainy night years ago?" The owner asked softly. She looked confused, shaking her head. "I'm sorry. I don't," she said. "It was so long ago. I helped many people back then, when I could." The owner's chest tightened. She didn't remember. Maybe he was just another hungry face in her past. But for him, that night had been everything. "You gave me food," he said quietly. "You gave me a blanket when I had nothing. I never forgot." The spoon froze in the boy's hand. He looked from the man to his mother, eyes wide. The woman blinked, trying to remember. Slowly, something seemed to click. She frowned, studying his face, the way he spoke, the way he looked at her. A small gasp left her lips. You were that young man?" She whispered. The owner nodded once. She leaned back in her chair, covering her mouth with one hand. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. She had helped so many people back then, before her own life had fallen apart. She never thought any of them would even remember her name. "I didn't know," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I do," he replied. "I owe you more than you know." The boy looked at his mother in wonder. "You helped him?" he asked, as if he couldn't believe his tired, quiet mother had once saved someone else. She touched his hair gently, nodding. "It was nothing," she said. "He needed help. I just did what anyone should do." But the owner shook his head. "It wasn't nothing. That night, you gave me hope when I had none. I promised myself I'd never forget the kindness of a stranger." Other diners were listening now, the story spreading in whispers around the room. Waiters paused near the counter, eyes on the table. Everyone could feel the weight of the moment. The woman sat very still, unsure what to say. Her son held her, hand under the table, looking between her and the man like he was watching some secret unfold. The owner leaned forward. "You gave me food when I was starving," he said softly. "Tonight, let me give something back." The woman shook her head quickly. "You already have. This meal, it's more than enough." But the man's expression was serious. "No," he said. "This is only the beginning." The boy froze with his spoon in midair. His mother frowned, confused by the man's tone. Did he mean? The owner didn't explain yet. His eyes stayed on her face as if seeing all the years of pain she had carried alone. He felt a decision forming in his heart, something bigger than just feeding them tonight. Around them, the restaurant lights glowed warmly, but at that corner table, emotions were shifting like waves before a storm. And no one, not the mother, not the boy, not even the diners watching closely, had any idea what was about to happen next. The room felt heavy with silence after the man's words. The woman looked down at her plate, her hands trembling slightly. She didn't know what to say. She had not expected this night to bring up memories from so long ago. All she wanted was to feed her son a warm meal. She never thought she would be sitting across from someone whose life she had once touched without even realizing it. The boy finished his food quickly, licking his spoon shyly. He didn't really understand what the grown-ups were talking about, but he could tell it was something important. He had never seen his mother this quiet. The man stood up suddenly and walked to the center of the restaurant. His deep voice carried across the room as he called for everyone's attention. Conversations stopped. People turned in their seats. The staff froze near the counter. "I want to tell you all something," he said firmly. The woman looked startled. "Please," she whispered. "You don't have to," but the man raised his hand gently. "I want to," he said, his voice softer now. He pointed toward the corner table where the woman and her son sat. "Years ago," he began, "I was not the man you see today. I had no restaurant, no money, nothing. I was just another hungry face on the street." The room was silent except for the quiet music playing somewhere in the background. "One rainy night," he continued, "I was cold, wet, and starving. People walked past me like I didn't exist. Then a woman stopped." He nodded toward the table. "That woman. She gave me food, a blanket, and hope. She didn't know my name. She didn't ask for anything. She just helped because it was the right thing to do." The boy stared at his mother, his eyes wide. She was blinking fast, trying not to cry. The man's voice grew stronger. "I promised myself that night, if I ever made it out of that life, I would never forget her kindness." He paused, looking around the room. "Tonight, she came here with her son, hungry and tired, just like I was back then. And now it's my turn to give something back." The woman shook her head quickly, her cheeks red. "Please, you don't need to." But the man turned toward her, his voice warm but steady. "I have to," he said simply, "because people like you, people who help without expecting anything, they are the reason men like me survive to see better days." The boy slipped his small hand into his mother's, holding it tight. He didn't fully understand everything, but he knew something big was happening. The man looked at the diners, then at his staff. "This woman saved me once," he said, "and I will make sure she and her son never go hungry again." A soft murmur ran through the room. Some people looked touched, others surprised. The waiters exchanged glances, realizing this was more than just charity. This was gratitude. This was a life coming full circle. The woman covered her mouth with one hand, tears slipping through despite her efforts to stop them. She had spent so many years feeling invisible, like the world had forgotten she even existed. Now here was this man, someone important, someone successful, telling a room full of strangers that her one small act of kindness had changed his life. The boy leaned close to her. "Mom," he whispered softly, "you helped him when he was like us." She nodded slowly, unable to speak. The man walked back toward their table. He didn't sit this time. He stood tall, looking down at her with the same serious face people usually feared. But tonight his eyes were softer. "Let me help you now," he said quietly. "You gave me hope when I had nothing. Let me give you and your son a chance to start again." The woman opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her life had been a series of struggles, disappointments, and broken promises. She didn't even remember the last time someone had looked at her with kindness instead of pity. She tried to speak, to tell him she couldn't accept anything more, but the words tangled in her throat. She felt her son's hand holding hers tightly, as if he was afraid this moment might slip away. People in the restaurant began to clap softly, unsure what else to do. They didn't know the whole story, but they knew they had witnessed something rare and beautiful, a moment of gratitude. Returning after years like a lost traveler finding its way home, the woman finally whispered, her voice trembling, "Why? Why would you do this for us?" The man smiled faintly. "Because once you gave a stranger a meal and a blanket. And sometimes one small kindness can change everything." The boy looked up at his mother with shining eyes. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a dream too far away. The woman sat frozen, her hand clutching her son so tightly he could feel it shaking. She had spent so many years surviving one day at a time that she had forgotten what it felt like to hope for anything more. Now this man, standing in front of her, was offering her something she didn't even know how to ask for, a chance at a life where her son wouldn't have to go hungry anymore. Her son looked between the two adults, his eyes wide with excitement. He didn't fully understand everything, but he knew one thing clearly: tonight was different. Tonight felt like the start of something new. The owner of the restaurant, the same man who had once been just as hungry and cold as them, leaned forward, slightly, speaking in a softer voice now, as if this moment was just for them. "I have a small house near here," he said. "It's empty, no one lives there. From tonight it's yours. Both of you, no rent, no questions." The woman stared at him, her lips parting like she wanted to speak but couldn't. Her son blinked in surprise, thinking he must have misheard. A house? A real roof over their heads? He had slept on bus stops, under bridges, in cold shelters that smelled of damp blankets. The idea of a house felt like something out of a dream, but the man wasn't finished. "I'll give you a job too," he said firmly, "here at the restaurant. You can work in the kitchen or wherever you're comfortable. I'll make sure your son goes to school. You both deserve a real life, not just survival." The boy's mouth fell open, and he looked at his mother with disbelief, waiting for her to say something, to agree before this miracle disappeared. But the woman just shook her head, tears running freely now. "I can't accept all this," she whispered. "You don't owe me anything. I helped you once because it was the right thing to do, not for this." The man nodded slowly. "And I'm helping you now because it's the right thing to do," he said. "Life gave me a chance to become someone. But that chance started the night you helped me. Don't take this away from me. Let me return the kindness." The boy squeezed his mother's hand hard. "Please, Mom," he said softly. "We won't be cold anymore. I can go to school. You won't have to be sad every day." His little voice cracked, and it broke her heart. The woman covered her face with both hands, trying to stop the tears. She had carried so much pain alone for so long. She had hidden her hunger, her fears, her hopelessness, so her son wouldn't see how much she was hurting inside. And now this man was offering to lift that weight completely. Slowly she nodded. It was small at first, like she wasn't sure she deserved any of it, but then it grew firmer as her son grabbed her arm, smiling through tears. The man smiled faintly too, the kind of smile that only comes when life finally allows something good to happen after too much darkness. He turned to his staff. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "I want the small house cleaned and ready, and someone call the school nearby. This boy starts next week." The entire restaurant erupted in soft applause. People had been pretending not to stare, but now they couldn't help themselves. Even strangers felt the emotion of the moment, the beauty of seeing kindness come full circle after so many years. The boy laughed for the first time in what felt like forever. Not a small laugh, but the kind that bursts out when happiness feels too big to stay inside. His mother pulled him close, holding him as if she never wanted to let go. She looked at the man through her tears. "I don't have words," she said. Quietly, "I don't know how to thank you." The man shook his head. "You already did," he said softly. "Years ago, when you helped a man with nothing. Tonight is just life bringing it all back to you." The boy finished the last piece of bread on his plate, grinning from ear to ear. He didn't care about the whispers, the applause, the people staring. For him, this was the best night of his life. The woman finally smiled too, a real smile, the kind that comes when a long storm finally ends. She didn't know what tomorrow would look like, but for the first time in years, she knew it wouldn't be spent on the streets. As they left the restaurant together, the boy holding her hand tight, the man walking beside them, the lights behind them glowed warmly like a promise that life was about to change forever. And it all started because, years ago, a hungry young man was given a blanket, a meal, and a reason to believe in kindness again.